Jujutsu Kaisen started off as potentially one of the best, if not the best, new gen shonen manga, having a fast start, cool characters, and so much intrigue and hype, in which brings back memories to the good old shonen titles that I enjoy. However, 6 years later, JJK ended up just like Megami, having a lot of statements and potential, but nothing much to offer, leading to what I think is one of the biggest downfalls in anime history. Now, this might seem as an exaggeration, but the downfall here does not refer to a drop in popularity, but rather a significant drop in quality. Without further ado, let me explain my frustration with Jujutsu Kaisen. From the very first episodes of JJK, it was hard to tell what the story was about, leaving a huge gap for us to speculate about the future events or the main focus of the series. But as the years pass, we're still stuck at the same loophole and the story doesn't seem to be going anywhere. As a matter of fact, it seems that we're watching a whole ass show dedicated to none other than Sukuna, as if the whole cast doesn't matter, no the protagonist, no the other antagonists, no the strongest sorcerer of today, or even the Jujutsu Society itself. We're basically watching an evil man doing evil stuff. Zero depth, no ideology, no philosophy, no actual goal, nothing. Now this might be at least partially fixed near the ending, and although it is unlikely to happen since the manga is 95% finished, but even though if JJ gave Sukuna a proper backstory and conclusion, this doesn't change the fact that the majority of the series was just random stuff happening without zero build-up or bigger purpose whatsoever, which makes me always feel like something is missing. Fights are thrown randomly at you just for the sake of fighting, lacking any emotional depth or meaning, and the conclusion to these fights is mostly trash, usually including ass-pulls or off-screening, contributing nothing to the bigger picture. I'm not even a Gojo fan, but what does off-screening Gojo with a technique that we never saw beforehand contribute to anything, aside from satisfying JJ's fetish of humiliating his own characters? What grinds my gears the most is that something like that could have been easily avoided. Imagine when they announced Gojo as the winner of the fight, and as we are seeing Sukuna leaning against the wall, he suddenly laughs and then uncorks the world-cutting slash, killing Gojo and destroying everything in the vicinity. Wouldn't that have been a much better conclusion to such a legendary fight? Nope, the author thought otherwise. He just wanted Gojo dead in any way, shape or form, which takes us to one of JJK's biggest problems. Killing off important characters is not that big of a deal in itself. I think other shonen mangas should kill important characters more often instead of saving them every single time. However, JJK has two major flaws with the way the characters are handled. Firstly, most characters lack depth, screen time, and goals, making it really hard for me to like the character or to be invested in their fight, let alone shed a single tear when they brutally get killed. I personally didn't give a shit about Shoso, Nobara, or whoever the author killed since I have lost count. It didn't feel like the character that just died had any significance to the plot anyway. So much potential and potentially great and useful characters are thrown down the drain just for the sake of the already non-existent plot to progress, or for the sake of getting a reaction from the readers who are low-key a bunch of masochists. The other major flaw is that characters do not get a proper conclusion or even a decent and complete story arc. In closer inspection, you're gonna realize that most of the characters have the same life cycle. A character is introduced by either getting a big fight or huge statements, and sometimes both of them. They then get hyped up beyond oblivion, just for them to be either paired against a way stronger opponent or to fight in bad circumstances, eventually leading to the character getting humiliated and killed. And if not all of that, they just disappear without a word and turn into useless garbage. Most of the time, we don't even know what actually happened to the character. It just feels that JJ deliberately keeps their fates relatively vague to use them later when he feels like it, or when Sukuna needs another opponent to flex his unused Hei and Air techniques, or when the amount of viewership plummets since we got Sukuna soloing the entire verse for the past 250 chapters. To put that in perspective, look how many character was done dirty. We have Yuji, the fucking protagonist. He's a normal teenager that joined the Jujutsu Society after some incident, and all he wants is to simply protect, except he never got to protect anybody up until this point. The only thing he did so far was to stare at his loved ones getting stomped one after the other, and some of y'all have the audacity to call this bullshit character development. JJK had a lot occurring simultaneously at different places. We had Sukuna trying to wreak havoc, we had Kinjaku and his group orchestrating some devious acts, Toji trying to afford rent, and the rest of the Jujutsu Society doing absolutely nothing. I also thought that each one of these plot lines is going to be intersected at a great finale, delivering such poetic and well-written ending that has a great meaning behind it. One problem is, none of them got to achieve anything meaningful. and most of them left the story early on without properly concluding their storylines. So newer, shittier characters and storylines can be introduced just for them to not end well either. Like, what the hell did the Destruction Curses want? To destroy? I don't know. Well, I do know, but their goal was so forced and naive. Although they were significantly strong, they got wiped in the span of 10 episodes or so, as if they were only added to the story just to help Sukuna regain a huge chunk of his power and then leave forever. Curses of Destruction aside, I thought that at least Kenjaku will have an Aizen-level plan. Ultimately, he got one-tapped by a dude camping in a bush, achieving virtually 0% of his goals. So what about Kashimo and his desire to fight the strongest? Oh, this didn't end well either. You got my point. If we were to remove all of these plot points and act as if they were never there, barely anything changes in the grand scheme of things. JJ introduced a lot of cool concepts and characters just to not finish writing them properly or bother finish writing them, period. And this doesn't apply only to the storylines, since JJ seems to refuse doing any world building. The Jujutsu Society is never expanded upon or looked into. We don't know how they manage the world, we don't know the history of the clans and how they passed their techniques among them, or how the era of Sukuna looked like. In short, we know nothing. What makes this really inexcusable is that JJ had the time to explain at least half of this stuff in full detail, but instead kept throwing garbage shit fights thinking they can compensate for the shitty writing, leading to even more and worse writing. In conclusion, although a lot of you might disagree with some of these points that I have made, most of you will argue that JJK flopped when Gojo died or when Yuta took over his body. My hot take is, JJK peaked at Shibuya and it all started going downhill slowly beyond redemption from there. JJK might have started as an actual good anime, but unfortunately it ended up as every other generic